Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the 100. A great episode! A lot of great things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, you have Josephine pretending to be Clark. Like, there's so many levels to this whole situation. For one, this whole situation now explains why Kaylee was so intent on getting her family's bodies back. It's like, oh, this is why, because for them, it's like death isn't the end until the flames, but their mind drives, as they call them, are destroyed. And so that's really interesting to me. I was like, oh, okay, so that explains. But then Josephine's pissed at Kaylee because it's like, oh, Kaylee, you are the one who killed me. And she kills Kaylee, but Kaylee killed her initially because it's like, you killed someone that was important to me. I was just trying to protect Sanctum, because I guess it's like, it seems like Josephine isn't all there, and now we kind of understand why. It seems like she's a bit of the mad scientist during this whole situation, but obviously we'll kind of break that down soon enough. Obviously Jordan immediately is like, yeah, this whole Delilah situation, there's something there, because it's like, oh, like, here's your favorite flower, and she's like, thank you. It's like, no, before all this she told me her favorite flower was something else. Obviously Bellamy and Murphy didn't really want to listen, and you have Clark, dude, trying to pretend like she's good with everyone else. And then there's interesting conversations I really like, because like the whole conversation, like, oh, can Maddie go to school? And Clark's like, sure. Obviously it's Josephine, but then like you have Gaia bringing up some, like, I figured as much as like you don't want her around other kids, just because it's like, well, not just a responsibility as a commander, but also if she bleeds or something, she'll be found as a Nightblood. It didn't click in my head as something as simple as, oh, if she gets a paper cut or something, bam, she's exploded. It didn't even, like, I love that Gaia used examples like that. Also, I should also know, it's kind of interesting, the actress Tati who plays Gaia, it's interesting, like, this is the first season of the 100 subsequently since the Chilling of Adventures, both parts, right? I think so. I'm fairly certain, yeah, because both parts came out, and so it's just kind of interesting. I didn't even think about that until now, because I mean, if you don't know, in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, she plays, I guess, one of the main characters, Prudence. So it's just kind of interesting to me to think about that. But nevertheless, that was just kind of me, just something that was floating in the back of my mind. But nevertheless, it's interesting too when she has that conversation with her mom, because obviously, like, you know, she's like trying to pretend. I love it because Josephine is like, oh yeah, you should read this book, and then Abby's like, oh yeah, I already read it. Oh, you thought the stuff we did in Becca's lab was, ooh, this woman was a monster. And she's like, or visionary. I'm like, dude, I love that. And also I love that she catches such a small detail. Clark, why are you writing with your right hand? Which, I will tell you, in the entire series, I never noticed that Clark was left-handed. I never noticed small details like that, so that's interesting that they make a point of that, which I also think is pretty dope, because I'm like, hey, I'm a lefty. I'd assume since Clark's a lefty, I'd assume that Eliza Taylor's a lefty too. I wouldn't assume you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she could be fake writing with her right hand, so that could have just been like, obviously, like her not really writing anything, because she might actually legitimately be a lefty. Whatever the case may be, it's just cool to know that Clark and potentially Eliza Taylor are a lefty, so that's pretty cool. You know, I'm a lefty too, so nevertheless. But I love her kind of like diverting her mom's attention, like, oh, this could help out Marcus, blah, 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 oh, let me go. Obviously, Abby was about to question it, but obviously she's so focused on saving Marcus that nothing else really matters. Well, everything else kind of floats away, you know, so it's kind of sad, too, because you even have Jackson kind of pointing out the fact is you're replacing one addiction with another. I love the conversation later on about Jackson being like, oh, the fact is, if we do this, it's going to take a 15-hour procedure to do it. The moment we pull Marcus out of there, he's going to have 10 minutes top. And it's like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to replace one addiction with another. But she's like, no, it's not about pills. Marcus is a good man. He's good and true. And the fact of the matter is, we aren't. When it came to being by, you know, Octavia's side, we submitted. We went along with everything. Marcus is the only one who tried to stop it. And you know, it's like, so for her, it's like, he deserves to live, but we don't, because we're terrible people. It's that whole situation of, we'll get our humanity back later. And gotten her humanity back after everything, it's like, no, like, we deserve to burn for what we've done, which is interesting, because obviously there's the whole conversation about Murphy and everything. It's so interesting because Murphy brought up that whole point of going to hell and everything, and then you have Abby being like, oh, well, you'll be judged for the reasons why you did the things you did. But now I think it almost seems like she's kind of going against that, being like, no, it doesn't matter why we did what we did, because I think for her it's like, if we were doing it to save someone else, sure. If we were helping people, sure. Which, yes, we were, but we were only worried about our own survival, but it was survival of other people too. So it's a hard conversation to really say I don't, but it almost feels like from the context of the conversation, almost like Abby did kind of switch on that. But I did like that, and Jackson is like, I just did what I was supposed to do. I just did my job, and she's like, yeah, exactly what any war criminal would say, and that pisses Jackson off. But it's like Abby's obviously frustrated because it's like because it's not just Jackson she's blaming. She's like blaming everyone that had anything to do with those dark years, And it's like Marcus is the only one of us who didn't go along with that, So also it doesn't hurt that obviously she loves him too, and for her it's like his life is more valuable than mine, more valuable than all of ours because he is the best of us. He can, Marcus has always done the best he could for everyone, and for things to kind of be where they are now, it's a sad situation, and you kind of feel bad for Jackson because for him it was like I did what everyone did. We all did what we had to survive, and now you kind of have to live with those consequences, And obviously, there's a lot to kind of be brought up. I like the whole Murphy situation. Bellamy's like, yo, we got to, expand. And Murphy's like, nah, let's just stay here. But Bellamy's like, okay, even if they did let us stay, what about the other 400? Well, what about the 400 of us all? Like everyone that's on the ship and everything. Are they really going to be okay with us staying here? Because apparently, they've stated, Sanctum up to a certain extent outside of Sanctum is as far as they've really sketched out and mapped out. Because obviously, and Murphy brings up a good point of well, why go out any further than you need to? And it makes sense. I mean, truth be told is when you actually break it down and think about Earth, it's not like a lot of Earth was really covered. I mean, the different tribes and stuff like that, I guess, of the Grounders probably worked like that, or different places, but you never got a full scope of Earth. I guess you could make the argument that lab where Allie was, I mean, who knows, on the scale of things of was that on the other side of the Earth or whatever, but you never got a full grand scale of the planet anyway, But I mean, maybe we did and we just didn't realize, because it's never been you've seen a topical. I mean, maybe there were topical views, but I just never. I mean, that was probably what was established. That was probably just based on Sky Crew's information. I don't know if there was ever any maps for the Grounders that be oh yeah, this is the different. Nevertheless, I'm going on a huge tangent. It's just kind of interesting to think about. Bellamy and Murphy following Jordan. I was like, how long is it going to take for them to find this secret? It's also interesting too that Josephine keeps pointing out the fact that she kind of has a thing for Murphy. I kept thinking that in my head, I'm like, she's going to start making out with Bellamy or Murphy, and it's going to cause some issues, and that's going to lean to that stuff. But it's no, not necessarily. That doesn't come up, but the fact is she points out that she kind of into Murphy. We'll kind of circle back to that because that might be, especially where you consider where him and Amari are right now. It's kind of him and Josephine might be in a more connected mind state, but we'll kind of get to that soon enough. But I love that Jordan's the one that discovered it, and it also brought up some interesting conversations because obviously at first Gaia's whatever their faith is, we got to respect it, and it's and you're right. Of course, Gaia out of anyone would say that because she believes in the faith, of the commanders and everything like that, all that, their religion is based on. It's right, because let's not forget, she's super religious, and I was right. So that's interesting. But then discovering everything and figuring it out, it's actually kind of interesting in many different levels because for one, we find out that Josephine was the first person to be brought back, that it took Gabriel 25 years to figure it out. And now it kind of makes sense why Gabriel is so against it now. Because it's not only were you the one who, for him, it's I want to bring back the people we care about. But then you can tell it got turned into something diluted. And now it's now we're just sacrificing people to bring other people back over and over again. It's this endless, disgusting cycle. So, of course, he broke away from it because he feels the most responsible. Because I literally performed the research that let that situation happen. He had to have done it at some point in time. I think it's probably a situation because obviously he was already 25 years older, and obviously there was 200 years later to get to where we are present day. So they call him old man. So at some point, like I was bringing up before, he had to have stopped. And I think it's because maybe at one point he was okay with it, but then eventually the weight of it started weighing heavier and heavier on him of what have I done, when he starts seeing more and more what they do, their justification for it, trying to be immortal and stuff like that. That maybe there's even points where he decided he didn't want to, but then Josephine, maybe, for example, because she loves him or whatever, made the choice to be no, because it's no longer about the natural order of things of dying. So I don't know, but it's just interesting. I was wondering why Josephine was smiling and stuff like that when she was watching videos. Oh yeah, because that was her first time coming back, and that's crazy. And then, like, obviously everyone's discussed it except for Murphy. I'm like, so this is Murphy's plot line for this season. He's super, because obviously he's paranoid about death now. And so for him, it's like, oh, the chance of immortality? Of course I'm going to take it. Because, you know, his mortality, you know, he literally died and he knows what's potentially awaiting him, hell. So he's scared now. Like, he is like, I don't want to make this come any sooner. If I can prevent it forever, sure, I'm all for this. Obviously, everyone else isn't. Now, I love that Murphy brings a comparison of like, oh, really? You're judging their fate, considering the fact is of, oh yeah, how does the whole commander situation happen? I was like, oh right, you train kids to become your commanders and stuff like that. That's what your religion's based on. You know, so there's that interesting situation. But obviously, Jordan's the most pissed about it because like the woman he fell in love with, Delilah, is gone forever. And the fact is they're so okay with it. He's looking at it like they're murderers and stuff like that. Even the whole like, you know, Maddie situation kind of gets revealed about like, oh, she's a black blood. Because it's so interesting too, because like the whole conversation of like, okay, so do we tell them the truth? It's like, we can't tell them the truth because they might leave and they might potentially be our only means of keep staying alive. But now Josephine knows because of the whole conversation they had about, oh yeah, like making black bloods. That sparked something in Josephine like, wait, what? So now it's like Abby made Clark a black blood because there are no more black bloods other than her and Maddie. I was like, what are you going to do when that happens? But it's like, no, when the time comes, because Josephine's initial plot, and you know, and it shows you just how like mad scientist she is. It's basically, she wanted to basically make a baby factory of like trying to turn, and even Russell's like, we're not going to turn humans into cattle. Because that's, no matter, even if it's to save us, we're not going to do that. But for Josephine, that's how she wanted to kind of make, you know, black blood so people could, there be more hosts. But now it's like, we don't have to worry about that. We can turn everyone into black bloods, and that way everyone that's died can come back. But it's like, for them, it's like, well, what about the people who live? Like, because, you know, because that's what Jordan was bringing up. You literally built an entire religion to make it seem like, oh, you're gods and stuff like that. The way you come back and they worship you and stuff like that. It's like, you're not gods. You're regular people who sacrificing other people's lives. Like, these are just, they might be the ones who founded the planet and stuff, like came all those years ago. But the fact of the matter is, they're just like you, flesh and blood, who found a way to immortalize themselves. And that's super messed up, you know? But, you know, and that's so interesting to see how, like, I really like the, like I said, religious angle. Like I said, especially comparing it to what, because it was an issue with like the way the whole commander situation worked on Earth, but it was not that bad. But to be fair, you know, it's a different evil. You know, it's like, well, which is the lesser two evils? I'd assume everything with the commanders, but you could make the arguments like you're training kids to become warriors, and just like a lot of kids have to be sacrificed and stuff. So there's that. But at the same time, it's like, well, this is a whole bunch of people. You're literally getting people to worship you so you can kill them and possess their bodies later, you know, if they turn out to be black bloods. And, you know, it's a whole thing. And like everyone's okay with it because it's like, oh, this is the way things work and stuff like that. So I should also talk about the fact is I really love the constant thing of like them speaking the other language. And obviously you have, and it shows you how smart Josephine is too, because she's actually like, oh, she's actually picking up pieces of it, being like, oh, like when Bellamy was like, give us a minute, like she roughly got enough of her, at least read the context to be able to quickly be like, oh, just give us a minute, or nevertheless. But it was like, I love that her bringing that up, but also her trying to defend it and everything. It's like, these people here are happy and everything. The fact of the matter is we destroyed our world. Can we really judge them? But like Bellamy's like, I'm not trying to, like, I live with everything that I've done. I've never I hate like myself every day for what I've done. The difference is when I see the faces of the people I killed in my dreams, not in the mirror. They literally have to look at the people they kill, and they're living their lives enjoying it, knowing that that person is no longer there because of them. You know, it's a whole new level of kind of twisted when you actually break it down and stuff like that. But then, like, Bellamy quickly finds out it's not Clark, but Josephine, you know, paralyzes him, and it's like, oh my god, dude. Like I said, because I was wondering how long it was going to take before anyone recognized that they weren't, you know, Clark wasn't herself. Obviously, only a small group of them now know. I mean, all the ones that are here now know. Because, I mean, the thing is, because you actually look at that situation and think about it, it's super twisted. Because you know what that means? That means they're just going to wait for Maddie to get a little bit older, and then she be another host and everything like that. I mean, it's interesting, too. Josephine was like, okay, so we either handle this one of two ways. Either, one, they find out I'm not Clark, they kill me, and they burn Sanctum to the ground. Or, if they have more Nightbloods, we grab their bodies, do the switcheroo, but then the others find out and burn Sanctum to the ground. It's like, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, because Russell doesn't want to go bloody. He wants to, Josephine seems like she's the one that's like, oh, do whatever it takes. If it need to be heavy-handed, whatever sacrifices need to be made, go ahead, let it be done. So now I think a combination of Abby's current situation with Marcus, I'm sure that's what's going to be neat. It's like, oh, you don't really side with us all. Well, if you do this, we can make it so that Marcus just gets a new body and you get to save the man that you love. And get this way, even if you don't want him to live forever, at least he'll get to live on now. So that's what's going to get Abby and potentially take her down that dark route. To be fair, Abby might be super reluctant if she finds out, oh, wait, you possess my daughter. She probably won't smile upon that. Like, yeah, this might save Marcus's life, but she might frown upon it just because it meant the death of her daughter. Which I still don't think Clark is dead. Because Clark has had, I think there's probably still enough of someone left, because Clark's kind of been in this situation to a certain extent before, like when she went into the City of Light and stuff. So I think she might be the most adjusted to this situation, so that maybe somewhere on Josephine's drive, maybe there's some part of Clark still sparked in there, hanging on, is what I kind of figured as much. Because I'd actually be surprised if they straight up be like, oh yeah, Clark's permanently dead. I think just the way, because of the whole City of Light situation, obviously that was a little bit different, but I still like to think there's some spark of those said people there. I think within a certain time frame you can get them. Maybe Delilah is still alive on that mind drive. Maybe we'll have to wait and see though. Obviously, Maddie's not going to be happy about it. She's going to be the most pissed about this situation. Obviously, going to tell, Gaia isn't about this either. I'm curious about where everyone else stands on this. I feel like the majority of people, but there might be some people in there who might be like, honestly, I'm okay with that. Because even Raven might be like, because of everything that happened with Shaw, she might be more inclined to be not having to lose someone you ever care about again. She might be down for that too. So I don't know. It's hard to say where everyone's going to stand on this situation. I'm sure Gioza's not really going to be all that about it, because it's like, oh yeah, her baby might be in this situation. Might someone try to... It's like, no, you're not going to do that to my baby, even if it's... So I don't see everyone but you can potentially see some people being okay with it. Obviously, we got Murphy. Even Josephine going to him. At first, he's flipping out, oh, you're not Clark. Wait, okay, I'm listening to this whole situation. So it's going to be interesting to see where that storyline ends up ultimately taking us with all of that. Especially now, it's because she's probably going to... Because the whole thing is, Murphy's probably going to float this idea towards her, but probably the whole situation about Clark being Josephine probably is not going to come up. They're probably going to try and keep that as low profile as possible. Currently, the only people who know is Murphy and Bellamy. Now, Murphy, he could always just be playing along. Murphy kind of has a tendency to do that for a while until it's he ultimately does what's right. I don't know, after this current circumstances, he might be all in with this idea. So it's yeah, it's kind of sucks that Clark is dead. Yeah, he had his issues with her, but to know that she's gone and dead and being her body being used by someone else, obviously that's super fucked up. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I get the feeling the whole Clark, they'll probably try and keep Bellamy out of the picture so he doesn't tell anyone. But it's oh, where's Bellamy? I don't know. So they're probably going to try and move as quickly as possible. We'll see. Now, another exciting side to this episode is the whole situation with Octavia and Dios. I'm dude, I love you out there hunting that child of Gabriel. What's really interesting is obviously them getting stuck. And obviously, Octavia is struggling, and Dios is you're literally going to kill yourself doing that, because the more you struggle, the harder it takes. And then, Dios is oh, I know what you're going through. The fact is, I was in your shoes. The fact of the matter is, I was you. The fact is, it's oh, everyone hates you. Boo-hoo. Suck it up and get over it. And for her, it's if you want me to, I'll put a bullet in your head right now and put you out of all of our mercies. And she's you think I'm scared to die? She's go ahead and put leans her head against the barrel. It's like, yeah, because Octavia's kind of on like a warpath because she feels, because once again, it's that thing of like everything was worth it if it meant getting to the valley, but now it's like everything she did, the terrible thing she did, she could justify. It's always that thing of like, we'll always get our humanity back. She's like, at the very least, I'll get to the valley. Yeah, everyone kind of had their issues, but hey, everything I did was worth it. Now everything she did was worthless. All the people that they killed those dark years were for nothing. She became this other person for nothing, and now she has to live with it, just like everything Bellamy's ever done is haunting him, like everything Clark has ever done is haunting her. Like everyone has something in their past in this series. Like no one is 100% innocent. Argument is, you can only say like the only 100% innocent person right now would probably say it's Maddie, because everyone else has got like a whole bunch of blood on their hands. Regardless, it's that whole sad situation of what it takes to survive, the sacrifices that have to be made. So there's that to this whole situation. But like, I love what Dioza says of basically like, the fact of the matter is, you, as long as, I'm gonna say this once, as long as you're breathing, you can make things better. So what if everyone hates you now? The fact is, you can change yourself. You can change everything as long as you're still breathing. And so for Dioza, you know, especially because it's like, come to me when your name is literally, your picture is side by side with some of the worst people in history. It's like, oh, you've done some terrible shit. Apparently nothing compared to me. And that's something I brought up last time. I was like, she's literally next to Hitler and Stalin. Come on, dude. Once again, like, we heard a little bit of Dioza's exploits. She was big time terrorist, so it makes sense. But even she's like, to put me next to Hitler and Stalin? Really? It's actually kind of interesting too, because I didn't talk about this earlier, but I meant to circle back to it. It's the whole Becca situation. It kept confusing me because I was like, how do they have that technology? It doesn't make sense. But then I keep forgetting, right, there's a huge time skip at the end of season 5. Like, so when they landed on Sanctum all those years ago, it was like 130 years or whatever. Like, so like Becca was around then, so she was like, oh yeah, her technology with like the flame and stuff like that, obviously she brought it down to Earth, but obviously like they, Legis 3 probably got their hands on it too, so they probably just been building off of that technology. So it's so interesting too, because like obviously Becca kind of gets kind of praised as being like the first commander and everything, but it's like she wasn't a god, she was just some mad scientist. Lo and behold, like Josephine, and I like I said, I just love the parallels they're creating in that. But nevertheless, obviously there's a whole question, because obviously like they don't realize it, but they're more inclined to be on the side of the children of Gabriel. It's just like Dioza and Octavia just don't know the truth yet. The moment they do, they might be singing a different tune, especially because like Dioza's like, whoa, I don't want my baby growing up in a place like that. Or maybe she's like, oh, I'm fine with my baby growing up in a place like that because it's safe no matter what. But it's like, with these new circumstances coming about, making anyone a black blood, night blood, then maybe, have I been saying black blood the entire time? I mean, it doesn't matter, but I just, night blood. Either way, I feel like I've been saying black blood the entire. Nevertheless, anyone becoming a night blood is like your child potentially could be one. Basically, your child could be raised to literally be someone else's skin suit. It's crazy to think about. But I love, like, basically there's a temporal flare. Octavia hides underneath. And it's actually pretty dope of her being like, the fact of the matter is, I'll be okay. You go take care of your grave. It's like, oh, look at you. You're actually caring about someone other than yourself. And, sadly, that's why she does, in her own twisted way, she does care about other people. That's why she's like, oh, I'm doing what I'm necessary. But it's like, it's not necessary to do this for our people. You're actually doing more harm than good. Like Dioza said, you're basically like a hurricane of destruction. But I'm actually surprised, too, because it's actually pretty dope. Dioza actually came back for Octavia. I think, Octavia's kind of grown on her. I'm like, dude, I love this budding friendship. It's going to be because, once again, she brought it up. It's like, we're the two most hated people on Earth, the devils of Earth, being the new heroes and everything. It's definitely going to be interesting. Luckily, I was like, oh, man, that temporal flare, like, burned everything. And then, like, looking back on it, it's like, you did say temporal. And then we look at Octavia's hand. I chalked this up, not unless there was some other meaning to it. It took me a while. I had to rewind it to be like, what was that about? Wait, what? And I'm like, oh, her hand aged. Everything around her wasn't burnt. It aged rapidly. Like, the puddle she turned into glass, the ground was sand. Temporal flares, like, obviously it's like a time thing, so all of time just hit that area all at once. And I think maybe her hand was kind of exposed, got hit by some of it, so maybe it's hit her body. Even though she ducked under, maybe it hit her body and it's slowly going to encroach the rest of her body, or maybe it just hit her hand for now. Either way, That's really interesting. Once again, it's like them messing with so much stuff about the planet. Like I figured that never really came up too much during like the early season. Like I said, they tackled it a little bit after Prime Fire. Like basically season 5 deals heavily with like Earth's new conditions and stuff like that. But obviously we weren't on Earth long enough to really deal with those new conditions. Now we're on a new planet with even newer and wilder conditions. So I'm liking the fact is they're playing around with that a lot more. Obviously it's going to make surviving on Alpha a lot harder. But slowly but surely, we're going to figure and find out about every little thing that, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying there weren't things earlier on in the show, but I feel like not to the extent like after the Prime Fire situation where like a lot of the landscape changed in many different regards. But nevertheless, dude, I am so excited to see where the next episode takes us with all this. Dude, it's going to be crazy to see how this whole situation ends up playing out. Like I said, it's going like lines in the sand are going to be drawn. Those who are okay with everything sanctum and those who are going to be like, nah, we're totally children of Gabriel. Once again, probably not all that inclined to follow them. Obviously, to kidnap kids and everything like that. But at the same time, it's like, well, you kind of understand why. Sadly, some of them are like, oh, we need to kill them. Obviously, the dude they're chasing is like, no, we don't need to do that. We saved them. They're good. But I think it's the thing of like, well, they could still be used to perpetuate and continue it. So that's why some of the children of Gabriel probably like, it's probably better just to kill them, Where Gabriel stands on that, I'm assuming for him it's just like stop all that. Like it's hard. Once again, the old man might be dead, he might be alive, but I think for him he started something, and now it's like, oh, what have I done? Like the children of Gabriel kind of doing terrible things too. It's like for him it's like it's a lose-lose situation. I started everything in Sanctum, now I started this. Like maybe he just wants peace, he just wants to be left alone and die an old man. That's potentially where we'll see on that. But I'm curious what Octavia's storyline kind of turned into the Sanctum thing of like Bellamy might be willing to make the sacrifice of someone else if it means saving his sister. We will see. Dude, like I said, I'm so excited to see what the next episode takes us going forward with this. Sadly, there won't be an episode next week, but there will be one the week after next on June 11th. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.